That's been your drive. So before we get ahead of ourselves, what is chiropractic? I got to confess that I am a patient of chiropractic. I've been going for a number of years, and it's helped me immensely in my L1, which is the lower back. So I had to get that disclosure out there that I'm a beneficiary of it. But people want to know, what exactly does it do? You know, when they think it's like you're snapping bones, and they don't understand, you know, there's gases involved that are escaping from the bones. And yeah, go ahead.
Well, in 1895, there was no chiropractic, but although a chiropractic form of healing's been around for thousands of years, so the American Indians would do manipulations or bone setting. In England, there were bone setters. The Chinese, whenever they did an acupuncture treatment, they would always do some form of manipulation or bone setting. So for thousands of years, there's been some form of working with the human body to keep it in good alignment and to stay well. In 1895, the very first modern chiropractor, his name was D.D. Palmer, had a gentleman who had been deaf for several years. And he says, "Mind if I check you?" He felt along his spine, and he felt something that seemed to be out. He said, "Mind if I push on this?" And it made the first modern pop. And this janitor developed his hearing back again. So ironically, they thought they had the cure for hearing. And they put it in the newspapers, and all kinds of deaf people and hard of hearing people came to have their spines snapped. They didn't get much results, but they found that a lot of heart disease went away. So then they thought they had the cure for heart disease. And then they thought they had the cure for asthma. So what they ultimately found was, if there's a bone misaligned causing neurologic interference between the brain, which is your own body's internal computer, instructing all of the organs and tissues how to function, and the tissue doesn't get a clear signal how to work, then you could develop an illness, or what chiropractors call dis-ease. Modern medicine calls it disease, but they called it dis-ease.
Dis-ease.
Ease being health, a condition of wellness where everything is functioning.
Yeah, when you're at ease. Yeah.
Versus dis-ease.
Right.
So chiropractors traditionally look for vertebra of the spine, but any joint that become misaligned, mechanically not working properly, causing interference to the transmission of signals from the brain to the organs and tissues of the body. They eliminate that problem by what are called vertebral adjustments. So an adjustment is the correction of a bone out of place, technically in chiropractic known as a vertebral subluxation, which means a bone that's misaligned but not totally dislocated. It's a subluxation, a luxation being a total loss of function of a joint.
Yeah, now, you know, for example, if you got a bone out of place, it happens every once in a while for me because, you know, I did foolish things when I was young. If you got something bothering your neck, that could actually cause you arm pain, you know, all the way down the arm, shooting pains, or not working correctly. If it gets realigned, it's either much better or completely goes away.
Now, my office is very unique. We have what we call a multidisciplinary approach to keeping people well, or getting people out of pain as quickly as possible with a minimum of surgery or drugs. So we have medical physicians working alongside with chiropractic physicians, working along with a licensed physical therapist, working with an acupuncturist, working with a nutritionist, working with a foot reflexologist. So it's a whole group of professionals working together as a health team. Rather than just the chiropractic approach, we look at three main causes of disease. One being stress and the bad things that stress is doing to people's bodies over the course of their lives. We look at structural misalignment, which is traditional chiropractic, which damages the nervous system and causes misalignments. And we also start looking now at tremendous toxicity in the environment. There's air pollution, there's water pollution, there's plastics that never break down, making ocean the size of Rhode Island of floating plastic into the oceans. And then we got the food colorings and additives and flavorings and mercury and cadmium and nickel. All these things are starting to get into the human body, causing disease. So we have a whole branch to detoxify, get this stuff out of people. We have a whole branch to restore good alignment so the brain could clearly talk to the tissues. We have the medical physician in case we need acute medical care for infections and pain control. We have the acupuncturist to balance energy flow through the body. The foot reflexologist does some of that too. And we have a nutritionist. So as a team, we try to get people well and keep them well with a minimum of surgery, and then come out into the community and educate people as to how can they stay well without having to go the pharmaceutical route, which is just so prevalent these days.
Yeah, what does a foot, what do you call him? Or call her? The foot?
The foot reflexologist. So our bodies have certain points on your hands, on your feet, even on your ears. In acupuncture, your ear is shaped like a baby hanging upside down. And the earlobe would be the ear of the baby, and the feet would be up towards the top. And then on the inside you have the lungs, the heart, the intestines. And by pressing on certain points, you could cause some
problems,
effect in the body.
Right.
So one thing we do is to reduce weight. You could put a staple in the ear. If people are in pain, I've seen surgeries where they put a couple needles, maybe some on the hands and a couple in the ears, and they open up a person's skull and do open brain surgery, but with no anesthesia. So that's using the acupuncture meridians or channels to deal with.
Not in this country, right?
Oh, yeah.
In this country?
Right in my office.
Oh, okay.
No surgery, but
yeah,
a lot of pain relief. So in acupuncture, the treatment is to restore balance to your energy flow systems. So most people don't know it, but every 2 hours, there's a flow of energy into a different channel. And this is traditional Chinese medicine. And if there's an imbalance, too much energy in one channel and not enough in another, the imbalance causes a disease or symptoms. So chiropractic looks at structural balance. How well do we line up in gravity? Because we don't think of it. When you get out of that bed every single morning of your life and get onto 2 feet or seated like we are, the weight of your body is falling on your vertebrae. The better they line up, the better you're going to have structural integrity, the longer you're going to last. What we're seeing now, the greatest portion of the population that's lasting is over 100 years. Now, who wants to be 105 years old sitting in a wheelchair in some nursing home? General idea now is to live to your genetic potential. And when the egg and the sperm come together, you're dealt your genetic deck of cards. And you're going to live your life out according to what's in there. But you can modify your life. So for example, the Bailey family has a problem in that we're deficient in some genes that are written into our DNA. We can't change a simple vitamin, a B vitamin called folic acid, into something that's an active form of folic acid. Because of that, my family has a history of developing Alzheimer's disease. So I was actually at the cemetery the other day, and I looked at my father's tombstone. He was only 72 years, and probably for 3 or 4 years, at the end, he suffered from Alzheimer's disease that ultimately caused him to die. If he knew that he could have had the simple genetic test that I took for maybe $100 that identified this metabolic fault, that he could have took for maybe 20 cents a day, the special vitamin, and not develop that disease, he probably would have lived to 100. He looked terrific on the outside, but he developed this particular disease. So ironically, I gave my brother a sample of that the other day. Said, read this, you got it, take this. And this is a proactive upstream medicine. Before there's any signs or symptoms, you can start doing things with your life to stay well and healthy, to hopefully live 100, 110 years without diseases and infirmities. And then the general thought now is live your genetic potential and then die as quick as possible. So a lobster, for example. A 40-year-old lobster looks exactly like a 10-year-old lobster. There's no change in their crust, in their outside skeleton. They have the same sexual drive. Their muscular system is equally strong, except one day a lobster will just keel over and that'll be the end of it. It would be great for people to do the same thing without these chronic degenerative diseases because of either stress, because of either toxicity, or because of neurological traumas or tumors or infections that cause people an early demise If we could skip those, live long and healthy, then just one day.
I think in National Geographic, I think our bodies can actually last to about 120, and then the body parts start to fail, and you probably, just like you said, die in your sleep or something.
Yep.
You know, because you know, there's the blockages. You can take care of blockages in the larger veins and, you know, coronaries, but the capillaries, they all fill in at a certain point. So at some point in time, whether you're 115 or whatever, you're going to die naturally in your sleep. And it's going to be because too many of the little capillaries filled up.
But now scientists know why those little capillaries fill up. So at the end of a DNA strand or the end of a chromosome, there's like a little tip that would be on the end of a shoelace, and that's called a telomere. Now, telomeres are going to determine how long you're going to live. So back in 1951, there was a lady, Helen, and Helen Locke developed cancer. They took some of her cancer cells and put them on a dish, and they fed the cancer cells. They gave them water and heat and kept them nice.
Nice and warm.
And they took some of her regular cells, her cheek cells, her skin cells, and they put them on a dish. The normal cells would divide about 50 times and then die. No matter how many times they tried to keep her normal cells going, they divided about 50 times. That's what we call the Hayflick number. And every species is different. An elephant cells may go 100 divisions, and a cat or dog may go 30 divisions, but they die. But the cancer cells are immortal. They never, ever die. So they're using, I have people come in from Boehringer, and they use HeLa cells, they call them, from 1951 that they sell all over the world for research, because cancer cells are immortal, because they found a way to protect the telomeres from shortening as they go on in age. They're looking at how can people possibly live immortally, or they're finding that's probably not practical. How can we live, stay well, and then, like the lobster, just keel over one day? So that's the new line of research. And it's working. They took sick mice that were really ill, who had a shortening of their telomeres, and they actually lengthened them by reducing stress, by taking a good multiple vitamin, by just a wellness approach to life. The rats or the mice actually got healthier and lived longer, and if they didn't make these changes, they died. So there's a good show on Smithsonian now called Decoding Immortality. So very interesting if you want to catch up on some of the new stuff.
And I was getting to the when you do adjustments, like if you adjust the middle part of the back, that goes and affects the heart, right? In other words, it can theoretically drop your blood pressure and reduce the stress there might be. Maybe you're getting a little angina or something, you know, that can affect that. And something with your foot. I think that's what you're referring to. If you adjust the foot a certain way, your intestines will be...
Oh, that's the reflexology. So one's more energy balancing. The chiropractors look at structural balance. So the brain could send signals down to the heart, the lungs, the kidney, the bladder, the arms, the legs. So literally every cell in your body, we know, has over 1 million nerve hookups to the surface of that particular cell, instructing it how to function. So different parts tell the heart to beat faster, others tell the heart to beat slower. So there's always a balance. Just like in acupuncture there needs to be balance, in your nervous system, what's called the sympathetic and parasympathetic, the other than conscious nervous systems need to be in balance. One speeds up the heart, one slows down the heart. So really, every pharmaceutical that's out there mimics what your own nervous system would do. You could take a pill to slow your heart down if you have tachycardia. If you have bradycardia, you could take a pill to speed your heart up. If you go to the bathroom too much, we could take something to slow your intestines down. If you don't go enough, we'll give something to soften it. You could go down that aisle at the supermarket. You go to Stop and Shop over here, and there'll be one aisle where they sell relief. They have relief for headaches, they have relief for pain, they have relief for constipation, they have relief for red eyes, they have relief, but nothing there is correction.
Yeah.
So what we try to tell people, let's try and correct the problem so you don't have to rely so much on pharmaceutical things. Not that we're opposed, because I do have the medical doctor on staff. And if you're a diabetic, you need to replace your insulin. Chiropractors don't cure cancer. We don't cure diabetes. But we allow your body to be as healthy as it could be with a minimum of drugs and surgery.
Right.
That's why we're part of the health team now, whereas we're not outlaws anymore. Unscientific, we're part of the team with the dentist, the doctor, the psychologist, the chiropractor, all working to keep you well.
Another example that has come up in the past is that with kids with chronic earaches, that chiropractic has been very helpful for that.
Yeah.
Because of the adjustments in the neck, and I'm not 100% sure if you want to explain that. But
well, Donald and Ivana Trump took their baby who had chronic ear infections. They wanted to put the tubes in, and the Trumps didn't want to do it. So they took their baby to the chiropractor, and they got the whole back page of the Post, because it was so outrageous that why would you take your baby with a chronic ear infection, instead of getting the tubes and the antibiotics, why would you take him to the chiropractor? Because the same nerves that go to the ear that tell it to drain properly, to bring immune system functioning to the ear, are the same nerves that will keep the baby healthy if there's no interference. So we look for interference in the nervous system. There's a special technique now called the Neurologic Relief Center technique that we just took a few months ago. Chronic fibromyalgia, they're finding that other than the nerves transmitting, there's a fluid. So your brain is actually floating in a big bath of water, and so is your spinal cord. So that if you stop the car, you're not going to slam your brain against your skull. This fluid needs to flow freely from your skull down into the spine to keep everything floating around in there. If the top bone slides to the side, this is called the atlas bone, and ironically, the first chiropractors, whether you had plantar fasciitis, a pulled muscle in your leg, a hemorrhoid, or an ulcer, would only correct one bone, the one right below your skull, called the atlas. And if it was off, they would correct it, and they got unbelievable results all over the body. Modern chiropractors look all over to see these misalignments, but the early ones would only do one bone, and that's called upper cervical specific. There's still a few practitioners that do that now. So
just the neck area.
The one bone. By correcting it, I've had people get off the table and start crying. And before we would fix them, they would have a stutter. They would have what they call brain fog, fibro fog. They couldn't think clearly. They would have problems with their speech, and they would get up, speak normally, and start crying. My pain is gone. And we actually have a test that people could come into the office where we could check by supporting the atlas and kind of using your head weight to push it in a certain direction. People will have immediate results and a change in how they feel just from the NRCT. So it's something brand new in healthcare. It's only been around a couple of years.
So this affects fibromyalgia, and you don't necessarily have to take all of the
pills
drugs
and potions and something to sleep.
There's 3 or 4 or 5 pills sometimes.
10, 15. Yeah, it's a horrible disease. But there's no confirmatory blood test. There's no confirmatory anatomical changes. There's nothing that the medical community could find except they say there's 22 points, and if we press on 12 of them and they're sore, you have fibromyalgia. So that's the diagnosis. And then the treatment would be multiple medications over time to help you sleep better, to relieve the pain, to relieve the depression, versus if we could find it and you have just a bone out of place and you replace it, boom.
Now, you're members of a nonprofit organization. Could you tell us a little bit about the foundation?
Yeah, we're members of the Foundation of Wellness Professionals. This is a nationwide nonprofit organization. And rather than spend a lot of money on advertising and papers and phone books, we go out into the community and educate people as to what is health, what is not health, what could you do to avoid pharmaceuticals and surgical intervention unless it's necessary, and how could you live your life in order to live long and healthy, hopefully go 110 years like your genetic potential and be a lobster. So that's kind of our mission, is to help people as much as we can and reduce the need for the medicines if we can, and educate you how to stay well.
Now, do you have a website where people can get some additional information if they want?
Yes, they can go to www.brookfieldhealth.com. And it shows our New Milford office and our Brookfield office.
Yeah.
And it shows you the different doctors and
the different specialties and what have you. Okay.
And some of the specialties we do. We have spinal decompression. They used to go in there and do surgeries and medicines.
Is that when
for
you hang?
nerves.
Where you hang from the bar?
That's a primitive way.
Yeah, well, I used to do that.
But it works.
I used to hang out.
We have this elaborate $40,000 table. You could change the angle. You could change the pull on the neck or the lower back. So it's a little bit more sophisticated, but they do the same thing.
Yeah, it's interesting you call it the primitive one. That was the only one I ever did. But I still do that from time to time. Every once in a while, when my neck's bothering, I hang off the bed, and it seems to take care of it.
It's a good idea, but if you get dizzy and you're hanging there, you might get stuck for a while, though. So.
Yeah, that's true. See, maybe you can give us a couple other examples. We got about 5 minutes left of what areas the body govern. Another
Well, another major thing now would be stress.
Yeah.
Stress is so rampant in relationships and financial stress, and the stress of toxicity in the environment, and the stress of mechanical misalignments to the spine. These all affect glands in our body called the adrenal glands. And ironically, one of the things that make people age, that shortens those telomeres we were talking about, is stress. Now, a stressor is something we're not accustomed to in the environment. Like right now, there's stress outside. It's getting warmer. The days are getting longer. That's a stressor. And then you make a cup of tea or coffee. The stress of the caffeine. We're not really supposed to be drinking that much caffeine. But then they put additives and colorings and flavorings and humectants and all this stuff in our food. And then the plastic we were talking about never goes away. Every piece of plastic ever developed on the face of the earth is still in existence. Unfortunately, as it gets older, it shrinks down into these little pellets called neurals that are floating all over the ocean. If you were to take any dead fish or any dead bird lying on a beach anywhere in the world, they would be filled up with these things. And they tend to accumulate toxins maybe 10,000-fold over the regular ocean environment. So the fish eat them, the birds eat them. A lot of times we'll eat the fish. So
we got them in ourselves.
Starting to spread through the whole environment. So these stressors.
So how do we get rid of that? Or we can't get rid of it once it's in there?
You have to deal with it. Every once in a while, we have a program, Isogenics, that grabs onto the junk and cleans it out. So there's chelating agents, and there's a way to kind of cleanse your body. But you have to be aware of what you're putting into your body. There's so much junk in the foods.
Well, sometimes you think you're okay. Like I saw a program that on the fish farms.
Right.
Yeah, in other words, people are thinking, well, salmon's great. And I used to eat it twice a week. And then I find out, hey, maybe half the stuff I've been eating is from a fish farm, and I might be eating something that's harming myself.
Well,
so I'm eating less now.
It all started with McDonald's. Now we need tons of beef, we need tons of chicken, and we need tons of fish to feed all these people who just pull up and want something fast. All these animal farms, they give them steroids and hormones. They're genetically modified. Now the fish you're talking about are probably 8 feet long. They took a fish that used to be like this, and now it's 8 feet long. And they all eat corn, ironically. It's subsidized by the corn industry. So if you start looking into the foods that we eat from millions of years ago, when we used to eat lots of fruits and vegetables and some meats, now we're eating lots of refined carbohydrates and fats, and obesity is becoming rampant. Diabetes taking over.
But that's good for the corporations, because they make money off the food, and then they make money off their medical companies.
It's even beyond that. So Monsanto Corporation invented this stuff called Roundup.
Yeah.
They bought up all the seed companies. They modify one gene in a plant, and now it's not sensitive to Roundup. If they don't change the plant, all the other plants, especially weeds, are sensitive to Roundup. So a farmer just flies over twice a year, dumps Roundup on his crops, and it kills all the other weeds except for the genetically modified ones. But then they charge 4 times as much for the seeds. So the seeds are a little different. They make a little different product. In India, for example, suicide rates are up probably 300% because the Indian farmers, they have to buy the Monsanto stuff. They get hit with a blight that the regular plants didn't get, wipes them out, they commit suicide. So it's having global effects. If the Mexicans, they don't want this genetically modified stuff in Mexico because they have their prepared corn from thousands of years, the bees fly down, they cross-pollinate, so the whole planet is starting to be changed genetically, which is affecting us health-wise. So, well,
we go a little bit at a time, 1 inch at a time, or whatever, one piece of knowledge at a time, and we'll correct these things, hopefully.
I hope so.
I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank the viewers for tuning in the Community Forum. Tune in next week, same time, same station. Good night for now, and we'll see you then.
And it's a wrap.
No, we're off as far as we're off on the audio. Now we sit.
We're still on the picture though.
We're still for 30 seconds. We're just.